Hello and welcome to Warblog. Okay, this is the Toyota War, and it's a strange one really. Essentially, it starts off with the Chadian units. They take out this little place down here, which is called Fada. It's a communications base. After they do that, there's some sort of bombing, and they take out the radar at Audi Doum, which is a pain for the Libyans because it lost them basically a lot of their advantages that the radar offered. And then the Chadians essentially take Audi Doum Air Base itself. These are both sort of setbacks, and they were actually heavily defended positions. I've not made them heavily defended because I'm playing with numbers that probably wouldn't be able to actually replicate that. The numbers are sort of well off anyway, but they're not too bad. I've yet to sort of play it through, so I don't really know. It's a long-term game as well, so as soon as you pass day one, the variance changes so much so that it's hard to model the whole thing. Because if you don't gain Fada and you lose at Al Dumi, you don't get to the next stage. But anyway, historically, they took Fada and they took Al Dumi, and there was some fighting here and there. I mean, quite a lot of it. A lot of tanks, a lot of armored vehicles. 3,000 Libyan troops died. And the Libyans essentially retreated across the border to Mata Nassar Air Base, which is there. And they basically they tried to make it out that their mission was accomplished here, and they were just moving back. I'm not 100% familiar with it all, but just sort of piecing it together. And then basically later in the next year, this action sort of spreads 86, 87, and then it sort of finishes up about, I don't know, April, May 87, and then I think August 87, there's the Azul. Now, that name rings a bell. It's basically this game. So when this game, so that sort of like fits into the jigsaw here, and so then they come down here to take Azul, which is part of the Azul Strip. There's a lot of fighting between them. Essentially, the Libyans then win their territory back. But by that time, we've had so much time go through that, the forces could have done anything. But basically, that's the gameplay here. So it's the whole of the Toyota War, as sort of specified in Wikipedia. There's I think I've mentioned this elsewhere, but since the actual Toyota War scenario, it was named after the Chadians' use of these Toyota vehicles, which they basically mounted machine guns on to provide, excess mobility, which is why the units have movement of 7, just to give them a little bit of an edge. Probably won't make a lot of difference over a standard unit movement of 6. Maybe these should be a different colour actually, but these are the FAP units, whereas everything else is FAT. So these are the People's Armed Forces, I think. I should maybe give them another colour, but they don't have the same sort of movement, although there's no reason why they shouldn't. So, what was that? Yeah, that's the Democratic Revolutionary Council who are fighting for Libya. Okay, so that's the sort of the general outlay. Yeah. So basically, it's called the Toyota War because they were driving a lot of Toyotas. But the thing that sort of strikes me as interesting about that is that, this was 1986 to 1987, which is the end of the Azul War, which, what's that, 87, 86, 96, 2006, 2016. That was 30 years ago, and I'm beginning to personally get into the stage where that doesn't seem so long ago, but 30 years ago for a lot of people was a lifetime. And what I'm getting to here is that maybe some people just think, like I sort of thought, that this use of technicals, as they call it, was just something to do with ISIS and the Iraqi and the Syrian civil wars, and also in Libya. And when it just seems that they're all part and parcel of this modern warfare. But they were using them 30 years ago, and this was the war. Because it's called the Toyota War, where it was a new tactic. And I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but judging from the name of the war and the Wikipedia article, it's they invented it. So this was the birthplace of the technical, insurgent, rebel, and they're not even insurgents, there's the Chadian army. The Chadians did so well against Gaddafi, generally, that I think at the end of it, I'll be able to find it now. The Toyota War attracted considerable interest in the United States when the possibility of using Habari, who was the Chadian Prime Minister. We've got a lot of these Chadian ones. We've got like 4 Chadian games. We've got the one where Habari came to power, overthrowing the other guy who was assassinated, using Gaddafi to overthrow Gaddafi, using Habari to overthrow Gaddafi was given serious consideration as part of Reagan's administration. Reagan was a president of the United States. And again, they're probably thinking, oh, well, no, it was after Lincoln, after Washington. They become historic names for some people, but I remember Reagan, I remember Carter, not directly, but I had a Jimmy Carter T-shirt for some reason, a cartoon type thing. But anyway, the support for his government, Habari, during a visit to Washington, received a pledge of $32 million worth of aid, including Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. And the Stinger anti-aircraft missiles are replicated in this game in the sense that they've got heightened and superior air defense. So, without further ado, I don't know how this is going to work out. This is the first time I've done this, and in theory, this should be an overrun. Now, they use their superior mobility, but they also didn't go in through the front door. They basically went in through the back door, and I don't know how you can do that in the desert. But they seem to have sort of gone through and using some other sort of means to do this attack. But this is it. So, I mean, this is one thing that sort of gets me about this whole setup is so much relies on this attack winning, because this is what happened historically, and that's why I've given them such strong units. Okay, well, 3-1. I mean, that wasn't too over the top. 3-1 with a good die roll. I've replicated the historical result, so that's good. Just a little note on the map. You'll see that Fadu is right down here. Well, when I first did this map, I had sort of expanded it so that this western border and this eastern border were a little more flush on there. But what that actually meant was that the height of the map was a lot lower, and I sort of cut it off there. So I had Uringana, Kibar, and then Old Doom, and then I had to put Fada here. And it was just sort of too squashed and too closed up. So I redid the whole map, and there's not much there to have to redo, so it wasn't really a big problem. But then I sort of, that still stuck, because I sort of, when I looked at the Toyota War, I thought, it was across this whole area, but, the first thing they did was the FADA communications base, and it's stuck down here. That's why it's so, ideally I'd need a few more hexes along the bottom here to really make this map a little better. And I did actually toy with what I call super maps of this width, but maybe even twice the height. Now, if you're looking at it on a big, super duper plasma type screen, 30, 40 inch screen or whatever, you could possibly actually do that, but I always work this on my laptop, so I can get this whole screen in. But to be quite honest, I think I might go, it would have been nice to have had a bigger map, and I am sort of thinking about doing bigger maps Although to be quite honest, I also want to keep the momentum with the small. And this isn't even a smaller map. This is an elongated map. But these smaller maps, I still don't want to move away from that too much. But on here, I think it could have been justified because after this attack, as we just replicated there, which went through successfully, the Libyans bombed parts of Chad, which were below, I think, the 16th parallel. So there's the Azua Strip, and that's sort of what I replicated, but we're dealing with stuff down here. And the 16th parallel sort of goes along that line there, and basically, so the unexpected defeat stunned Gaddafi. So we've just done the unexpected defeat, which stunned Gaddafi, who then reacted on January the 4th, which is moving into 1987, by recalling to service all the army reservists in an act of defiance towards France, and also ordered the bombing of Arda, well below the 16th parallel. So the 16th parallel is not on this map, so we can't bomb Arda, but we can't bomb towns anyway. So we've replicated that part of history by taking out Fada there, and then it sort of. And we've got there France retaliated with a new airstrike on the Udidoum and destroyed their radar base. So this is Udidoum here. I've just already mentioned that, but it's nice to sort of work through this because this is pretty much what it's all about, trying to replicate, at least the storyline. Effectively blinding the Libyan Air Force in Chad for several months, Gaddafi attempted to contain the Fant threat by rushing several new battalions into Chad, especially Faya Lagu and Udidoum. Now those things come on. This browser just goes backwards every now and then. Those will come on. There are a lot of units in this game. This is why I'm sort of thinking, well, once we get past this stage, it's quite hard to replicate what happened, but there will be a lot of units on here. So essentially, the Libyans will pretty much fall back to Udidoum. The Chadians will take it. The Libyans will fall back to Matar as-Sara Air Base, and then we move on to the Azul conflict, which we've got modelled up there. So it's an interesting dynamic. I think I'm going to leave that line as it is. I could follow that attack up. Was there depressions? Movement here. 3.5 movement. I've only got a few minutes left. I don't want to do another one, but considering, let's do it again. Let's see what we can do on a second assault. I think we need to drive hard on the Libyans just to sort of get that historic perspective into play. This could be a 4-to-1 maybe, no, 3-to-1 and an exchange with the worst die roll ever. So we've at least taken the air base, the communications base down here, but they put up a stoic defence on their after retreating. So that was a bit of an impetuous move, but we can, I think, afford to recover that. Now these units down here are not there to be moved. I'm going to leave him there. I'm going to move this guy there, him there. I don't think we can move any further. I'm going to keep it just a line there because I don't want to be moving up too much on here. I've deliberately kept these forces slightly stronger than these ones, especially in their defensive positions. So that's that. Now I'm not sure what the Libyans are going to do. I think I'm going to play it historically, just because I want to sort of that's an interesting shape. Okay. Well, it's coming to a 15-minute thing. I don't really want to go through this because it's a mega game, a lot of units. But if you feel like playing Toyota War through and through, then go for it. And So it worked out. Speak to you later. Cheers, bye.